So we're back. We're back. This is Laura Thompson again with TAAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel with the global reach, and we're back to hear the great story of Na Tasha Bass. We had a few technical difficulties, which happens sometimes, but we're back. And so let's take up a little bit where we left off. You talked about, we were talking about what it was like growing up in your hometown.
I grew up in a small town, Commerce. It was full of a lot of community. Um, I didn't understand how much community meant and what value they gave to me as a woman and grooming me into being a woman. We had local first Black city councilmen, mayors, and they just taught us the importance of being civically engaged and community engaged. We have the old adage where the Black communities across the tracks didn't understand that growing up until later, but we really did have a good sense of community. Everybody took care of themselves. Everybody took care of other people's children. So
Wow.
it's nowhere you could go and be out of sight. You know, your grandmother would tell you, when you leave this house, you better represent me and don't do anything to disrespect me or this family.
Wow.
Kind of models. So
Wow.
yeah, very rich history.
So, did you graduate from high school there?
No, I actually graduated. We moved probably at the end of my middle school. And so I graduated from New Boston High.
Okay.
My mother relocated me and my brother and sister to New Boston, where my aunt and her husband, Eleanor Hilliard and Stan Hilliard, they had a church. And
Okay.
so it was different. The community was different, but it was still like engrossed in gospel, you know, Baptist. So we were raised in Baptist church. And so we were always at church.
Wow. So,
Yeah,
did you sing in the choir?
of course.
I
I
can
sung
hear
in
it
the
in your
choir.
voice. I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah. And Ursher and mission, everything. That's where we spent our extra time.
Wow. So, so you kind of grew up, serving, um, and so after you uh, graduated from high school and left there, so what did you do after that? After you graduated from high school?
After I graduated from high school, I was lucky to go into a program that got me a job at the local military base.
Okay.
It was Red River Army Depot. So as a student, I got into a program, got a job. After I graduated, they welcomed me full time, and I met other reserve assets and lawyers, and I was actually a worked in arbitrations and grievances,
Wow.
and learned about military, and it encouraged me. I met a lady that did awards. I could have easily been like everybody else in my town and just kept climbing through the government ladder. But
Hmm.
a story she brought to me, she told me about her life and how well off she is, and she was proud of her family, but she never left that military town. And
Wow.
she told me, don't make her mistake. And that's what inspired me to go into the military and see the world.
Wow. So, how old were you when you went into the military?
I was about 18.
Oh, wow. So you were a baby. Wow.
Yes.
A brave baby to go out. So what was your first tour duty? Where did you
My
go?
first tour, well, I went to basic training at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. And from there, I
Okay.
went to Fort Sam for my AIT is what we call it, to get
Hmm.
my career or my skills. And then
Okay.
from there, my first duty station was Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
Wow. So everybody has to kind of come through San Antonio. You said Fort Sam, right?
All medical come through Fort Sam. I
Oh,
was I was medical supply.
okay. Okay. So, how did you like the military, and what are some of the lessons you learned from serving?
I always used to say my mother taught me how to be a lady, but the military groomed me into a woman.
Hmm.
So I learned how to be more independent. I was kind of a prissy girl, I guess you would say, growing up. And so my recruiter and my my family didn't think I would make it in the military. And my
Mm-hmm.
recruiter actually told me, if you can't do it, just call me and I'll come pick you up. And
Oh.
so I like to tell people my haters are my motivators.
Wow.
And so I took on every challenge to try to do better and show everybody that I can do this. I wanted to get an education while getting skills and get promoted for my worth and for
Wow.
my merits. And that's what I did in the Army.
Wow. So you said that you had an opportunity to travel the world. So what are some of the places that you have traveled to, and what were some of those experiences?
Um, I've been to Korea twice. I think I learned that what we believe is poverty and what we believe is, not enough. I always thought I grew up poor, but
Hmm.
seeing some of them in the shacks, and they have a proud history, of course, but I didn't really understand the differences in race, the differences in economic differences and stuff until
Wow.
I got overseas. And when you're overseas with other Americans, you start to learn their stories. And
Hmm.
then I realized how proud and how well off I was to have a community, to have, values, and to have homes. Like my people own homes. I didn't know that that was like a big deal.
Wow.
I went to Germany. I've been in Massachusetts. I learned what snowed in actually means.
With
And
no, oh, with snowed in actually means?
yeah, when you go out and open your door and you actually can't walk out the door because the snow is
Wow.
up to your waist.
Wow. Well, that
Yeah.
is.
And I also was in DC, um, Germany, and I had 2 tours in Iraq,
Wow.
just to name a few.
So were you in combat?
Yes.
Oh wow. In all of the areas in Germany and Korea as well?
No, I was in Iraq, um, probably in 2003, the second war. We call it the second war.
Wow.
In the beginning, when you say our
Hmm.
third ID going through, we were sitting in Kuwait, and then we later moved. We jumped like 6 times, ended up in Baghdad,
Hmm.
and we were there with the third ID and fourth ID. And then
Wow.
I later had a second tour when I was stationed in Germany with one AD.
Wow. So as a civilian, and a non-military person, I never really, understood what y'all do and why y'all travel to other countries. I don't know if that's a secret or if it's something that you can kind of say, why do they send y'all to so many different places?
Okay. Good question. We go where we're needed. And so each individual military person has a particular skill that they train us on. And
Hmm.
as we go up in rank, we're more developed. So they teach us how to be leaders. They teach us how to, I'm medical supply. So they would teach me how to set up warehouses, how
Wow.
to distribute and set up hospitals. And so
Hmm.
when we're in the States, and we call that garrison, you're doing like a 9 to 5 with like everybody, like our civilian counterparts. But when we go to war, we're still doing that 9 to 5, but we're doing it in a field environment. So we have to like retrofit tents, retrofit ORs and warehouses, set up sources of supply, and we get the supplies to the front so the doctors and nurses can do their jobs.
Wow. Wow. So
And we
that.
move around because the need changes.
Hmm.
So when we're in Afghanistan, if we're in Iraq, or say we're in Massachusetts, they want us to be well developed and they want us to be worldly and used to anything so we can adapt when changes happen. Because when you're on the front lines or you're in war, or you go to, say, when Katrina hit, we deploy people there to help set up and get assets and sources of supply. You have to
Wow.
be able to adjust on the spot and not be moved and still be
Okay.
able to work in a stressful situation.
Okay. So that makes sense now. When you said Katrina, that kind of made me understand. Okay, y'all have to go where there's an urgent need and
Correct.
help them to get back on their feet, or so. Yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Okay. there was a lady that we interviewed yesterday. She has an organization where she feeds the homeless, but she came to San Antonio as a result of Katrina, and
Mm,
so there was a big disaster there, and so I understand why the military had to go there to help them. Okay, so now I,
yeah.
I
We
understand.
serve we serve for the public,
Wow.
for our country.
So, so I never could figure that out. I'm like, why are they traveling all over the place all the time? But that makes sense. So before we move on, I just wanted to say when we first came on, Annette Godfrey, the person that referred you as a woman that is making history, she told me to tell you hello
Oh, thank you.
because she's
Yeah,
on. She's
she's a
probably
great
on.
woman herself.
Yeah, she is. We interviewed her as well early
Okay.
on. So fast forward to San Antonio. So you moved to San Antonio with the military, or you retired in San Antonio?
No, I retired in Washington, D.C. I was stationed at Fort McNair. It's like
Okay,
in D.C.
okay,
And then I moved here afterwards, me and my husband, because I'm
okay.
from Texas and I already had a home here. And
Oh,
so we
okay,
just moved back into my house.
okay. So that makes sense. That makes sense. So after you retired from the military, what have you been doing since then?
Well, when I first retired, went back to school, um, got my dual masters, one in HR, human resource, another one in management and leadership. And
Okay.
then I got a project management certificate. And then after that, while I was doing all of that, I just started working in the community doing nonprofit work. I was at SHRM, Human Resource Management, Alamo chapter. I've worked with the NCOA, the Non-Commissioned Officer Association. I've
Wow.
worked on my homeowners association board as the president, and I've kind of moved around, just doing what I can to impact the community. And then I was the director of um, at Webster University at Fort Sam Houston for a little bit,
Wow. And so I think
and then I
offline.
started my business.
Okay. So yeah, tell us about what you do in your business as well.
Well, when
And
I was in the military, I was an equal opportunity advisor, and what we did was we put on special emphasis events, and we taught people to understand and tolerate differences amongst the different races and ethnicities, and how to kind of facilitate working as a team and making this world better. And I loved it so much that I wanted to emulate that in my private life and do it as a business model, and like go back, give back to people. I love research, I love history. I've had some meetings and events where I was public speaking, telling people about military women, telling people about African American history. And that's where I fit in real good in the historian role at NABMW.
wow. So I was gonna segue into that. So
Yeah.
right now, one of the things that you do is that you are the historian for the National Association for Black Military Women. I got it. I got it. I got
Yes, you got it.
it. And so what do you do in that role?
Well, basically, I connect with the ladies that we have in the chapter. I give them an outline and help them come up with telling their story.
Okay.
I think what some people don't get is not an easy task for a military woman to dive into herself and tell her story, because different situations that we're dealing with in the military don't always transfer over well, and so it's kind of triggering for some. So I
Mhm.
try to lend my emotional intelligence and my compassion to other women to write their stories down on paper so that I, their family members, and our future legacy can be saved. And I help them develop their biographies and their stories so we can publicize and bring awareness that we too served.
Wow. So how long have you been acting in that capacity? I know that the San Antonio chapter for the National Association of Black Military Women is relatively new. So So how long have you been working in that capacity? And
I've been working in this particular capacity for about a year now, coming up on
okay.
about a year.
And
Yeah.
how old is the chapter here in San Antonio?
Our chapter is almost 2 years old. We have a
Okay.
anniversary coming up in June, our second
Wow.
anniversary, and we're gonna have a big event. And of course, we want your people to come out on the 28th of June, 6 p.m. St. Philip's College. More
Oh,
to
really?
follow.
Okay. Wow,
Yes,
that's a good central location. That's
it
phenomenal.
is.
Phenomenal. So even beyond or before, uh, you became the historian in San Antonio, established a San Antonio chapter. The organization, as a whole, as a national organization, has made tremendous history, since their inception uh, and before. And so, to the extent that Tyler Perry produced and directed and wrote a documentary uh, to acknowledge some of the accomplishments of the women that were in the military back in the day. So, can you tell us a little bit about, as much as you know about that documentary and why that's important to African American and American history?
Well, thank you. Thank you for that question. Yes, the National Association of Black Military Women, our national um, founders, they founded it in 1976 um, at one of the members' house. About 21 ladies got together and got to talking, was doing reunions like we do in our Black community. And they decided, you know what, we're getting older, we're losing our history and experiences. Our family members, our children don't know who we are, our neighbors don't know who we are, our community don't. So if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. And so they got chartered in about 1996, I think 96 or 98. And they had this big function in Dallas, Texas. And one of the founders of NABMW, um, they were at the house of Lucille Brown, but one of the founders, they call her the mother of NABMW. She was a 6888 member,
Wow.
and she helped to get it organized. I was trying to remember her name off the top of my head. Miss Carter. Her name was Miss Carter. She helped to get them organized and get them um, intact and started out going and getting the stories of Black women, because we're not seeing in movies, we're not seeing in textbooks or documentaries. And so when Tyler Perry came along and wanted to do a movie after one of our senior 888 members that were still alive at the time he did the movie, it was amazing. I didn't realize sometimes we don't realize the importance of telling our story in context until somebody asked us about it. And before the movie came out, I had a civilian um, ask me, I don't understand how getting the mail is important. And I think that Tyler
Mm.
Perry did an excellent job at explaining, because I too have a personal connection with the movie, because when I was deployed, you don't know how important it is to get mail and hear from your loved ones.
Wow.
Sometimes you're in situations you can't control and you're fearing for your life and you don't know what the next step is going to be, and that is almost like having a foundation at home, a support system, and knowing that you're doing this and making sacrifices for them, and to know that they're okay mentally helps you to be okay. It keeps your morale up. It keeps you going every day. It keeps you moving forward when you're so scared inside your body that you don't know if you can make it, because you have to step into danger. You have to put yourself out there. And so getting that mail is important, because I didn't get my first tour of duty. I don't think I got my mail, but we got my mail about 6 months later when I got back, when
Wow.
I got back from the war. And then the second
Wow.
time I got it on a regular occurrence. So mail is very important to morale. When you are even in peacetime, when you're in training, mail call is like everybody stops everything. They get quiet. You have to tell them, and they listen for their names.
Mm. Wow.
That's how important mail is. And it's so important that even sometimes when they have the Girl Scouts to give cookies, or those Good Samaritans that send notes to people that don't have families and support systems, everybody wants that mail and looks for that mail and that
Mm.
connection to back home. So it
Wow.
is amazing that he was able to put it in plain speech and show and act it out with those amazing actors and explain to anyone how important the mail is to your mental and to your morale. And like I said, firsthand, I can tell you, yes, that is exactly how I think me and some other military women, we cried through that part because we understood the connection and how important that part was. And the civilian, when I told them prior to the movie, they didn't know that because we assumed everybody knew that.
Wow. So these particular women in that battalion, from my understanding, is that they organized the postal system and the postal service and helped to distribute the mail and made sure that people got their mail back in the day. Is that what they did?
Yes, they not only did a job that nobody thought they could do, they did a job better than the people who said that we were beneath them.
Hmm.
A lot of people forget that it was a time of segregation. And the
Hmm.
only reason we came about that 6 AAA was even able to deploy was because of Mary Bethune and Lady Roosevelt. They
Hmm.
advocated to get Black women across the seas. At that time, a lot of people don't understand why they were called an all Black unit, even though they had other minorities in it, because it was segregation and discriminatory practices was societal at that time. And all units, regardless if they were Black or not, they were labeled Black units. And so
Wow.
Mary and this lady Roosevelt advocated for the president to send the ladies overseas. At a time there was not people of color going overseas. They tried to relegate us into chefs and cooks and supply and other different realms that not necessarily fit our skill levels at the time because they thought we couldn't do it. And so they
Wow.
tried it with men, they tried it with white women, but in the end, the Black woman is the one that came through. Not only did they sift through like tons of mail, I think it was like 6 tons of mail or something. I don't know how many.
Hmm.
It's like over millions of pieces of mail. They
Wow.
came up with a system not only to get through that mail and to get it to a particular point in time when people move. If you ever been in combat, we don't stay in one place. Even my combat, I jumped 6 times. So to try to get that mail to a person that is constantly moving in a
Hmm.
territory you're not familiar with, it's a humongous job
So it was the sisters that made that work. Plus, that was
in
that was
record time.
right. Wow. And that's very hard work too.
Yes,
And it takes a lot of thought process and logistics. I can imagine to get that done. And a lot of times, other ethnicities are not equipped to do it because they're not used to the hard work, but we are. Uh,
yes.
and so, and we get it done. We sing and laugh and talk and get it done, and fuss and fight and get it done, regardless. So this particular movie, that Tyler Perry done, I understand that it was premiered or shown here in San Antonio, um, maybe a couple of months ago. So were you
Yes,
able to watch it, and what
yes.
was what was how did it impact you?
It was amazing. Yes, I watched it with another with other military women in my group, and other military organizations came out at Antioch Baptist Church. We had a premiere. It was amazing in the room when they whatever the emotion was on screen was the same similar emotion in the room. It's like we
Wow.
were there. Like we could see the footsteps that we were stepping in, and we could see where they were and where we are now. And I think all of us were like so proud and so um overwhelmed by the sacrifices they made. I mean, being in the military as a Black woman is already a big, thing to go through. But to see them go through it at the time they went
Mm.
through it, in the manner they went through it, with their heads held high, it just reinforced that we were meant to be here and they were meant to be there.
Wow. And you don't really think about mail and the postal service and how it works and how mail is distributed and how it has to go to so many different places. Because when they had the convention here in San Antonio, and I heard them talk about it, and I'm like, okay, so it's mail. What's the big deal about that? But when you think about it, it is a big deal. And when you think about it, it is a lot of work to get it done. And then for them to be able to, and have to be required to create a system to make it work, that's the big deal, is to just be able to do that. I haven't had an opportunity to see the movie, but can you tell our viewers and me, how we can see it and if it's still in circulation right now?
Yes, you can see it on Netflix,
Okay,
under the title The 6888.
okay, okay.
Yeah, it's still out there. You can still view it. And I think they do a beautiful job breaking down the systematic um, effort and how they achieved getting the mission done. Because, like you said, people think, we put a sticker on a piece of envelope and we take it to the post office and they do everything else. So you don't think about how it comes to pass. But it
Wow.
talked about and showed, and Tyler Perry did a wonderful job of breaking down the complexities of what they went through. Because not only did they have a job to do, and this is a part that even military today sometimes have a problem with, they did it in a position where the housing was deplorable. They did it in a position where it was cold and they didn't have supplies. We deployed with resources. They did it with no resources. And they did it with very little and outside intelligence. When I say outside intelligence, I'm talking about the units that bring that intelligence. Say, we're going to be at XYZ fob at this time, this date. They did it without all those
Wow.
resources, those other elements in place. They had to figure out where these people were at a particular point in time and where they were going to be next. So they didn't have like a home address. Oh, okay, so all mail go to this location. No,
Wow.
they had to figure out not only where they used to be, but they had to try to project where they're going to be next for future points in time, so they can get the mail to those particular persons in those units. So they
Wow.
they really did a good job of explaining that and how complex that is. So it wasn't just the manual labor that these women did. They actually had to put a lot of intelligence and complex systems in place. They built and created a system in order to
Wow.
do the job. And that's something that we've always been underestimated by. They don't think we have the skills or the know-how, but those women proved it and they proved it well.
Well, well, yeah, yeah, they do know. Yeah, they do know. That's why they use us to do it. They know. They want to take the credit for it, but they know. They know where it came from. They want to, silently or behind closed doors commend us, you know, for the work that we do, and then publicly take credit for it. The work that we've done, but they know. And I always like to say to women, especially women of color, that you know we do a lot of work, and we contribute a lot to
Yes.
this country and to our jobs, and we're well qualified, but we continue to try to prove ourselves when we don't really have to prove ourselves because we have it. What I think that we need to do is learn how to leverage, and negotiate, because you can negotiate if people need you and they need your services and they know that they can't get it anywhere else and that you do it better. You're in a good position. But as long as we continue to try to prove that we can do it, or, you know, get another degree so that we can perhaps get a promotion. And it's not wrong with the education part of it, but we don't have to prove ourselves, because a lot of things we innately know how to do, and we do it well. So, wow, this has been a phenomenal conversation and a great lesson. And you have a consulting business.
Yes,
Okay, so
I
tell us a
do.
little bit about how people can get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do.
Okay. Um, you can contact me on LinkedIn or my email, NATASHA .estes bass, ESTESBASS @gmail.com, and connect with me. I'm a human resource management consultant, and I help build teams, case management, facilitation, conflict management, all of the things. And I'm available. And thank
Wow,
you
and
for
if you
having me.
oh,
Those
no,
women
no problem.
did what they did gracefully, and I think for that we owe them a great honor.
Wow, and I think Kerry Washington was in that movie, and she actually stood up to him. You know,
Yes, she did.
when they tried to put her down, or make threats, she stood up to him, and that's what we have to do today. Is we gotta, we know what we can do, and y'all
Yeah,
know what
she
we
was
can do.
graceful, and
Yes,
same
yes.
as we are now. She was graceful and elicited great tact, and she stood for what the women did, stood on it.
Hmm.
It was amazing.
So the other thing before we go, I wanted to ask you to tell us if there's any military women, or women affiliated with the military that are interested in joining forces with the National Association of Black Military Women San Antonio chapter. How do they get in touch with you?
Thank you. Yes, we are on the lookout for other women of color or anyone. We don't discriminate. You can be any ethnicity, you can be any gender or race. We welcome everyone. As long as we are to be a regular member, you have to be of military service. But if you're in another category, you can be what we call associate members, and the only criteria is that you believe in our mission, and our mission is to tell her story. And you can go to www.nabmwsa.org
Wow.
to join.
So repeat that one more time.
NABMWSA.org, O-R-G,
Okay.
dot com, dot org. That's it. NABMWSA.org to join.
Wow. So this has been a great conversation. I am encouraged, and I encourage you to see the movie 6888 to learn about the Black military women back in the day, and to also look into if you are affiliated with the military, or if you know a woman that's affiliated with the military, active duty or retired, to go to, tell them again.
NABMWSA.org. And can I
Okay.
also say we have a anniversary dinner coming up on the 28th of June at
Okay.
St. Philip's College. Look for us on all the socials so you can get your ticket, or you can go to www.nabmwsa.org and get your tickets now.
Wow, this is awesome. And so, before this interview and before we go, Natasha said, I don't know if I can do it. And she's done a phenomenal job in explaining uh, her story, and also explaining the story of some of the women that have served our country, and done it well. So you've been tuned into It's Women's History Month on TAAN TV, the African American Network, where we have a local feel with a global reach. And thank you so much, Natasha, for telling part of your story today.
Thank you for having me.
All righty. Ciao.